Basically, in this video, I'm covering general material about configuration of Apache on an Ubuntu server. And this information is being gleaned or gleamed, I'm not sure which it is, from my playlist, which is called Development Environment. In other words, let me show it to you. It's this playlist here called Development Environment. Okay, this video basically covers from the first video all the way up until this one, number 20, Configure Apache. The rest of the playlist will be covered in other videos, starting with Configure PHP on the virtual machine. Okay, so to shut down a server, an Ubuntu server, the command is shutdown Option H now. To reboot the server, just enter the command reboot. To remove a package, do apt-get remove and then the name of the package. Similarly, apt-get install and a package name. Okay, actually, I may want to install this package called Build Essential. I'm not sure what it's about, but I think it may be related to compiling C programs or something. Okay, both users need access to the web root folder, both root and web data. Actually, the way it's going to work out. See, this is the web root folder for the default installation of Apache. Okay, in other words, when you go to this website, let me show it to you. This one right here. Okay, this page is actually the index page at var www.html. If I wanted to create another project or a virtual hosted site on this same server, I would also put it in var www in a folder that bears the name of that project. Now, in terms of access to var www, I don't think, okay, first of all, we're only talking about access by the web server, and the web server is this user, www.data. Okay? Now, this user, www-data, is going to access things in the file system as other. Okay? Let me demonstrate this. Okay? Here's my web server. I'm going to SSH into it. Okay? Now, let's go... Okay, wait. cd... what is it called? var? Yeah, var. Alright, cd, let me go to the root folder. Okay, dash var. Alright. Now, let's see what's in here. Okay. Now, there's ww in here. Okay, notice the permission. The permissions on this directory are rwx for root and rx for the group root, and it's rx for other. Okay? You're going to find on this system, this Ubuntu installation, that these are always going to be the permissions for a directory. Now let's dig deeper. cd ww. Okay, see, the permissions are still the same. Alright, let's go into the HTML directory. Okay, now, for this particular file over here, the permissions for root are read, write. There's no execute here. For the group root, it's read only, it's not read, write. And there's no execute. For other, it's also just read. Okay? Now, Apache, so far, the way the system is configured, is going to be accessing files and directories as other, okay? So whatever permissions are given to other, those are the permissions that Apache has. Apache is www-data. That's both the username and the group name for Apache on this system, okay? So if I were to grant more privileges to that group or to that user, or if I was going to make that user a member of a particular group and then give that group ownership of a directory, then that would be something different. But so far, the way it's configured, it's only accessing the directory and the files as whatever permissions you give to other. Okay, other right here. Okay? Alright, let me get out of this. Okay, the web root folder, as you have just seen, is var www.html. I just showed you the permissions for each directory in the path to this HTML directory. I also showed you that files created within this system, and more specifically within this directory, this HTML directory, which is the web root for what I just showed you here, which is this website on this server, are going to be, as I showed them to you, read, write, read, read. And the ownership is root, root. The user root and the group root. The command ID tells me which groups and users I belong to. Let me demonstrate that. Let me SSH in. I type ID. It tells me that I am root. My user ID number is 0. My group ID is 0. And the groups I belong to are 0. Okay? That's the group number for the root group. Okay. Now, if I want to do the same thing for a user other than myself, like let's say the user www.data, I would do this. Okay? So, for www.data, the user has number ID 33, the name, and the group 33, and the name www.data, and it belongs to the groups, only one group number 33, okay? I already showed you the default Apache 2 webpage, which this is the website and webpage that would show on a default installation, and my web server is configured to show that particular virtual host site, or actually maybe I don't even have virtual host configured yet. That's just the default site. And later on you'll get to see why this particular site is the one that shows up at the IP address for my server under the HTTP protocol on port 80. Now I'm going to read the document root section of that page I just showed you. By default, Ubuntu does not allow. Let's see what happens if I click there. It goes to a web page. So this is where they document the Apache web server. Okay. By default, Ubuntu does not allow access through the web browser to any file apart of those located in var www or the public directories. The public directories are the ones that are for the individual users of the Linux system. In their home directory, there's a folder called public HTML. Okay. So, by default, Ubuntu does not allow access through the web browser to any file apart of those located in these two location directories when enabled. This one is when enabled. Okay, and user shared, which is for web applications. So if your site is using a web document root located elsewhere, such as SRV, you may need to whitelist your document root directory in the Apache configuration file, the default or the main configuration file. The default Ubuntu document root is, okay, I already talked about that. You can make your own virtual hosts under var www. I already talked about that too. This is different to previous releases, which provides better security out of the box. So apparently, well, you could, whitelist something that's outside of this. They just said that, so I don't know what's really new here. Anyways, but I'm planning on putting mine as a subdirectory of var www. Alright, here's a command. This tells who is a member of VBoxSF group. Get ent group VBoxSF. I don't know what get ent means, but this specifies that VBoxSF is a group, and we want to get the members of that group. So that's the command. Okay, user mod -a-g VBoxSF SAM. That means add SAM to the VBoxSF group. User mod means modify the user. The user is SAM, and AG means add to the group VBoxSF. You must restart the system or something before the change to group membership takes effect. So basically here I'm talking about permissions and groups. I already talked about how the system works by default, which is that folders have this permission, files have this permission, and Apache accesses these files as other. Okay, there are other ways of setting up this system. Okay, and here I'm going to talk about one of those strategies. The strategy for having the web root folder owned by the group VBoxSF with permissions like this, and making the web server a member of VBoxSF may not work for my production environment. And part of the reason it may not work is it would be very difficult for me to manually have to change the permissions on each file and each directory to make them, have these types of permissions. And the reason for that is even if I change the UMask, I'm still not going to be able to get these kind of permissions. Okay, it's just impossible to do that by changing the UMask alone. So files that are created will never be able to have these kind of permissions by default. I'm not sure how my virtual machine was able to do that. I think it was possibly done by applying a patch to the kernel or loading an extra kernel module. I mean, if I really want to do it that way, I might want to research on the internet, use Google or something to find out if there are which particular kernel module will do this and how to load that kernel module. Etc Apache 2, apache2.conf. That's the main Apache configuration file. The video called var log file exploration. Okay, let me show it to you. Okay, it's this one right here. Here it is. It started playing finally. Alright, this one right here. In this video, I'm going to talk about the var log. Okay. That video in the playlist Development Environment, which is the same playlist I'm making the summary for. That video does a good job of explaining the commands head, tail, find, and grep. Okay, this is just a side note. Alright, now back to the configuration files. The module configuration files for Apache go in mods available. The virtual host configuration files for Apache go in sites available, both of which are in etc Apache 2. The file sites available 000-default.conf. I'm not sure that there's 3 zeros, there might be just 2. That file is the default pre-configured virtual host Apache configuration file. I can either modify it to suit my hosted website or disable it and enable a custom virtual host configuration file. Sudo edit is a utility that is equivalent to doing sudo and nano, to sudo nano a file. The virtual host configuration file used in the development environment is vboxsf.conf. Maybe I'll want to emulate some things from this vbox.conf file for my production environment. Ports.conf, which is in etc Apache 2, it's in here. So ports.conf is for configuring which ports Apache listens on. Port 443 is for HTTPS requests. Think of the specified ports as being a whitelist. These ports are whitelisted. It is not actually configuring the Linux kernel to listen to a particular port for Apache. That is why port 8080 has to be listed there, although the kernel will listen to port 80 for requests coming from outside. Examples for use, and this is how I have my virtual machine set up. I have 8080 listed in that file, that ports.conf file. And the reason that it's needed is sometimes the web server makes requests for itself. And when the web server makes that request, and it has seen that 8080 was listed in the original user request of the web server, it may put 8080 in there. And then it will get confused when it sees that it's on port 80, not 8080. That's why we're adding 8080 to our ports.conf. Anyways, moving right along. Okay, now about configuring stuff. Examples for use of the A2 nsite and A2 dissite. A2 nsite vboxsf, A2 dissite 00 default. These were issued while in the etc Apache 2 directory. Okay, to activate the new configuration, do service Apache 2 reload. You would use the reload after changing a configuration file. There are certain times when you have to do a service Apache 2 restart, not reload. And you'll see that later. Just like there are A2 nsite and A2 dissite for site custom configuration, there is also A2 nmod and A2 dismod for module configuration. Now, I'm not sure about the accuracy of this statement right here, but let me just talk about modules for a second. There's 2 components I can think of for modules. There's the actual binary for the module. Then there's the configuration file for the module. There's one third thing, which is the symlink, which enables the configuration file, which I believe also enables the module in Apache. Now, about the binary. Sometimes the binary is already there. And actually, the binary is there and the configuration for that module's binary is there. And the only step that is missing is running the A2N mod in order to enable that module. Okay? Now, on the other hand, there are times when those things are available and possible, but you also have to run apt-get to install the binary and its configuration file. And after you do that, you can run A2N mod to enable that module in Apache. Now, for production, I should do. These are some modules that I'm going to want to enable. And by the way, those modules are already on the machine. I don't have to run apt-get to put them on the machine. The only step that's missing is to actually run A2N mod on them. And after running that, I will have to restart Apache. Now remember, the first example had a service Apache 2 reload. This one is service Apache 2 restart. Okay, and the modules are the rewrite module, the status module, and the vhost alias module. The rewrite module is, I believe it's for URL rewriting. When you have, when you use those SEO friendly URLs, okay, then you need the rewrite module. The status module allows you, and I'll show this later, it allows you to put I think it's HTTP status in the URL and be able to get a status on the Apache server, of the Apache server. vhost alias. That allows us in our virtual host configuration to put wildcards and have an alias for the host name. Okay? And then you do Apache 2 restart. Okay. Because I installed the status module, I can use the URL, the URL from my website, and then server status. And then I would receive a page with the status of the web server. All right, I'm going to demo that. Oh, but first I would have to install, I haven't run these on my server yet, so it's not going to work right now. But later on I might want to do this. I think by enabling virtual hosts for Apache and enabling a configuration file for each site, I can host both buscompanyx.com and gxsam11.net on the same machine. And I'm talking about my production machine, which is called sam.buscompanyx.com. That's it for this video. There will be more videos that cover more topics from the playlist called Development Environment. And remember, I'm doing all this in preparation, for this endeavor. Remember, the playlist right now that I'm doing is called what? No Framework PHP Endeavor, okay? So I'm doing summaries of previous playlists in the hope that this will help me with my endeavor for the No Framework project.